Hi, everyone. Welcome to yoga. I'm recording this class during the season of spring, which is a time of renewal and new beginnings. I'm sharing a practice that brings in strengthening movements, breath connection, and moments of rest. So let's start where we are and with what we have. Helpful props will be a yoga mat, a chair, a wall, some weights, and blocks. You are free to practice without props as well, and I will bring in those options. So let's begin lying on our backs. So take your time in your space and settle yourself down, spine to mat. We'll bring the knees into flexion and then walk the feet to the edge of your yoga mat. We can drop the knees together and allow the arms to be alongside the body. Find a few moments here of breath connection. Settling into this moment. It's time that you've carved out for yourself. Check in with the state of your mind. And just noticing and observing without judgment. As you breathe in and out, and check in with the state of your physical body. And again, just notice and observe any areas of sensitivity or discomfort, or perhaps you're working with chronic injury, or maybe you are in a state of healing. So remembering that what I share in this practice are suggestions, and you can listen to your inner wisdom as your guide. From here, you may want to bring hands to the low belly. Find a few moments, feeling breath move in and out of the body. In your own time, when you feel called to bring movement into the body, you can begin by reaching through the fingers, circling out through the wrists, finding an extension to the arms, perhaps reaching up towards the ceiling, and then extending those arms overhead. From here, we can reach back up again towards the ceiling, circle out through the wrists, and then reach those arms out to the sides. Backs of my hands are resting on the floor. My palms are up facing the ceiling. And I'll begin to bring some movement into the low body, dropping right knee down through center. And then coming back up and dropping left knee down through center. As you begin to alternate sides here, we'll just notice the parts of the body that make connection to the floor and that grounded, rooted energy that we have. And then, of course, the parts of the body that unpeel away from the floor. Your head and neck may be facing the ceiling. Maybe you allow your head and neck to rotate side to side along with the knees. And then we'll find that movement coming back through center, walking the feet underneath the knees, and then moving and shifting ourselves all the way over to the right side. So I'm bringing my left arm over to meet the right palm. And then I'll reach my left hand beyond the right fingers and then begin to open that left arm up again, reaching towards the ceiling and then opening up that left arm alongside the body here in that horizontal T position. You may leave it there in this twist, or perhaps you would like to continue the movement of reaching that left arm towards the right, extending the fingers beyond the right palm, and then bringing that left arm up towards the ceiling, and again, opening out to the side body. I'll show this move one more time before we switch out sides. Reaching that left arm up, extending beyond the right fingertips, reaching through that left shoulder, and then sliding that left hand up the right arm towards the ceiling. And then again, opening up to the left side of your body. Enjoying a full round of breath here. And keeping the arms in that horizontal position, we'll draw the knees up and press down through the feet to lift up the hips, scooching them over to the right, creating some space to drop the knees to the left. And now this right arm will reach up towards the ceiling, find that left palm and extend beyond the left fingertips, slide up the left arm, reach towards the ceiling, and then open here. Pressing the back of the right hand to the floor, choosing to linger, enjoying a round of breath, or continuing with the movement of pulling that right arm up, reaching towards the ceiling, then bringing it back towards the left palm, reaching beyond the fingertips, sliding that right hand up the left arm, reaching towards the ceiling, and then opening again. Gaze maybe over the left shoulder or towards the ceiling, whatever feels right for your head and neck. Nothing is forced or rushed. Just move at the pace that you like. Perhaps one more round here, reaching, lifting, and then opening that right arm. Enjoying one round of breath here. And keeping the arms in this horizontal position, we'll press down through the feet and then lift the hips back towards center with knees bent. Walking the feet towards the pelvis. From here, I'm going to reach up with the right arm towards the ceiling, reach up with the left arm towards the ceiling. Pressing into the pelvis and the feet, I'm going to unpeel the back of my head and the upper part of my spine away, and then reach with the right hand, and then reach with the left hand. So as if I'm climbing an imaginary rope, engaging through the upper part of my body. Just finding that pulling action, lifting you up, and then lowering you back down. And then release the arms down alongside the body. We'll begin to lift up through the right foot, rotate through the right ankle. And then tap the big toe down, pressing the right foot down as we lift up through the left foot, circling out through the left ankle. And then we'll tap down through that left big toe, bringing the left heel down as well. And then we can begin to alternate. Having each foot tap down, just bringing in movement through the hips and through the knees. And then we will pause with both feet lifted. Knees are bent and the soles of the feet are facing the opposite wall in your space. And then we can reach up through the arms and we'll begin extending through one leg and then enjoying that extension in the opposite arm. So I'll begin by extending through the right leg and then reaching my left arm overhead, coming back through center, extending through left leg, and then reaching that right arm overhead. So alternating sides here. Just again, moving at the pace that works for you as we begin this practice. So finding the range of motion that works for you within the low body, the upper body. Maybe explore around with the opposite arm. That's not an extension. One or two more rounds here. And we'll find our way back to the middle where we'll hug in the knees towards the belly, begin to rock a bit from side to side. So rolling all the way onto the hip and the shoulder. And then ultimately finding our way all the way onto one side of the body, where we will pause for a moment and then press ourselves up, where we will meet in hands and knees position. So I have two mats underneath my space here, and if you would like to have extra support underneath the knees, we'll be on our knees for a little bit. So I'm going to find a blanket and unravel the blanket for knee support. And if you're working with props today, you can have the weights within reach as well as the blocks. I like to begin with blocks on the medium edge so I can find a grip to my hands, just some rocking forward and back through the shoulders and through the pelvis, perhaps circling around the hips in one direction and then the other. Maybe finding that full rotation of a circle and then shifting it out to the opposite direction. And then we'll find our way to center here, where you may want to curl the toes under, roll the shoulders back, drop the pelvis down towards the floor, roll the shoulders towards the spine, take your gaze up any amount. You may want to draw the breath into the body here, and then when you're ready to exhale, you will tuck the pelvis and round the spine, find a bit of length through the arms, and draw the chin towards the chest. So awakening the spine here with breath and movement, with flexion and extension. You may want to linger as you round the spine, perhaps shifting, swaying from side to side. And then returning the tops of the feet to the mat, making any adjustments within your space. We'll begin to shift the weight onto the left knee and draw the right knee in towards the right elbow, and then begin to draw circles with that right knee out to the side. So your circles may start small, just moving in one direction, and then you may pause and shift the circles in the opposite direction. Finding that full extension of the right leg out to the side, and then planting the right foot down onto the floor beside you. Shifting through that left knee, I'm going to release my hands from the blocks and just walk my hands over to the right foot. Find a softness here and ease to your breath. And then slowly begin to walk the hands back to the blocks. I'm going to shift my blocks forward and then bring one of the weights into my right hand. Actually, I'll bring one of the blocks too underneath my left hand. Just having that extra support underneath the block, underneath my left hand with the block is helpful for me. So just feel it out in your own body. We will begin to lift the weight through the right hand. And I'm just holding the weight in this lengthened arm position, and I'll begin to draw circles with the right hand. Circles in one direction, and then pausing, and then bringing circles in the other direction. As I find stillness here, I'm going to begin to pull the weight up towards my right rib cage and then draw the weight back down. So a few repetitions here. And just a note with using weights within the yoga practice, I start out with anywhere between 3, I would say, to 6 or 7 pounds. It really is dependent upon your practice and how you feel. And the one thing that I will say about weights is increasing the weight as you practice is how we build strength. So option to continue these bent over rows by drawing the weight up towards the rib cage, or you may want to pull that weight up towards the rib cage, rotate the torso, and then push the weight up overhead towards the ceiling. So finding that full extension and then bringing weight back down towards the rib cage and then releasing. So you may want to work like this as another option. Of course, you can always just bring in the arm without the weight, reaching that right arm overhead. And this movement may become fluid as well. So explore within your own body, with or without the weight. I'm going to pause at the top here, find a round of breath, and then release this weight down. I will draw the block underneath the right hand, and then from here, I'm going to bend into the right knee. Find a few side lunges, and then begin to walk my right foot towards the front edge of my mat. So just taking my time, and then working with the blocks here. So finding this lift to the blocks on the higher side may give you a little more support to lift up through your torso. Find a pause here, and we'll begin to move with the arms. So you may choose to have weights in your hands here as well, and we can draw the arms up towards the ceiling. You may want to bring a breath into the body here, and as you exhale, you could hinge forward, straighten that right leg, and then extend the arms behind the body. So option to have weights in the hands or without. I'm just going to show without here. So my right toes are lifting up towards the ceiling as I straighten that right leg and extend my arms behind me. Find a few more repetitions here. And then I'm going to bring my hands down towards the blocks. I'm going to walk the right block to the inside of the right foot, and then I'll begin to stack my blocks in a way that feels comfortable in my body, and then release through the forearms. So I'm drawing this right knee in towards my right side body, and then attempting to release through the upper body. Connecting with breath here. Breathing into the upper back and the middle back, the low back, the right side, the left side, and the front of the body as well. I'll shift my weight into the left forearm, press my right hand into the block, press my left hand into the block, and then from here I'm going to readjust the blocks to that higher position, walk my right foot in, curl my left toes under, and then lift my back left leg, and then option to reach that right arm forward, or up towards the ceiling for a twisted lunge. Connecting in with physical sensation, breath. And then releasing that right hand down, we'll release the left knee down. I'm going to shift my blocks to the inside of that right foot and then bring that right leg all the way around, circle it back to meet the left. And I'm just going to make some adjustments in my space so you can see as we switch it out to the other side. So as we come back into this table position, feel free to draw some circles with your hips. You may want to do some half moons here, circling side to side, or maybe you have a full rotation to the upper part of the body. One direction and then the other. You may even want to find a moment here with your arms lengthened, resting on the blocks as you shift the hips back towards the heels. And then again, attempt to soften through the head and neck, particularly the back of the neck. Find some release there. Unraveling when you're ready, coming back to that table position. We'll shift the weight into the right knee this time, draw the left knee up towards the left elbow, and then begin to draw circles with that left knee. So circles can start in one direction, they can start small and shift the other direction. Maybe those circles become larger. And then we'll find that full extension to the left leg, out to the side, and then plant that left foot down. Making adjustments in your space here. And then I'm going to release my hands from the blocks, walk my hands over towards the left foot. Enjoying a round of breath here. And then walking the hands back through center. I'll keep that block underneath my right hand and then have my weight for my left hand. Pressing into the right hand and the right block. Allowing space to be able to dangle the weight within the left hand if you're working with the weight, and then begin to draw circles. Moving in one direction, and then moving in the other. You may pause and then pull that weight up to the left rib cage and then draw it down. So enjoying a few repetitions here with your bent over rows, gauging through the upper part of the body, perhaps adjusting the pace of your pull. Holding at the top and then lower down slowly. You have the option to bring the weight up to the rib cage, rotate the torso, and then push the weight up overhead. And then rotate yourself back down. And again, this movement may become a little more fluid as you begin to lift and lower the weight. I'll enjoy a few more repetitions and then I'll hold that weight at the top. Pause for a round of breath. And then find release with that weight back down towards the floor. I'm going to find the block in the left hand and then begin to bring movement into the left knee. So a few passes here of side lunge. Just noticing sensation, right side to left side. And then we'll bring this left foot towards the front part of our mat. So again, I adjust the blocks to the higher side, find that lift through the torso. And when I was showing on the opposite side, I showed without weights. So I'll show with weights here. Just adjust the blocks maybe out in front of you a little bit, and then you have the weights in each hand. Roll your shoulders back and down, pressing down through the top of that right foot, just feeling into the weights in the hands. And then we may begin to bring movement here as the arms reach up, hinge forward at the hips, and then extend the arms behind. So we did a little bit of movement with the low leg as well. So straightening through that left leg, pressing down through the left heel, and then planting that left foot back up, bending through that left knee, reaching arms up. So again, these are options with or without weights. You can move more quickly or you can move more slowly. I'm going to hold at the top here for a full round of breath. And then lower the weight slowly. I'll replace the blocks to the inside of my left foot and then walk my left foot out a bit and then lower my forearms down onto the support of the block and then tuck my left knee in towards my left side body. Releasing through the head and neck, maybe this time shaking the head right to left. Staying conscious and aware of the breath moving through the body. And I'll shift my weight into my right forearm, bring my left hand to the block, right hand to the block, uplift through the torso here, and then readjust my block. So again, I have that higher level support. Walk my left foot in, curl the right toes under, and then option to lift the back right leg, reaching left arm forward, and then finding a twist, left arm up towards the ceiling for a round of breath or two. And then releasing that left hand down, releasing the right knee down. I'm going to bring that block to the inside of the left foot and then bring that left foot back to meet the right. From here, I'm just going to set up my space, but we'll stay in table pose. At this time, we'll find the toes curled under and the palms pressing down on the mat. If you want to continue to use the blocks here, feel free to do so. Opening up the space between the palms here, between each finger pad, and gripping the mat so you can feel a little color change and see a little color change the tips of your fingers. And then reaching one hand forward, alternating here, maybe reaching one arm out to the side. Fingers extend, perhaps one hand towards the knee, opposite hand away from you. Just finding different ways to open up through the palms, through the inner forearms, through the hands. And then from here, if you would like to use the blocks, feel free to do so. You could grip the edges of the blocks. We're going to press the hands down into the mat or grip the blocks and hover the knees. And then we can walk the hands forward and then find ourselves in downward dog. So head and neck may slide through the arms. We can open up the feet to the width of the yoga mat. Just express yourself in this particular shape in a way that feels right, that you could get the breath moving through the body. So shifting and swaying from side to side, maybe even bending through one knee and then the other. I find this pose can be stagnant, and then we tend to hold our breath with it. So we're holding the pose and holding the breath at the same time. So find a way that you could enjoy this pose where it feels as if you could get the breath in and out in an easeful way. And then we'll begin to rotate ourselves so we're in a high plank. Shoulders can stack over the wrists. So this is where it's very helpful to be gripping blocks if you have any wrist sensitivity. And then we'll push ourselves back up, downward dog. We'll do a few more here, and then we'll end up onto our bellies. So transitioning downward dog into plank pose for a few rounds. And then we will slowly begin to lower the knees down towards the mat and then lower the belly down as well. I'm just going to shift some of these props. We can rest here, forehead to forearms. Begin to bend through the knees. Feel free to kick a little bit forward and back. Maybe even draw circles with the feet on the ceiling. Shifting and swaying those feet from side to side. Readjusting the thighs, finding full extension of the legs here, and then take a moment to just curl the toes under, lifting up and engaging through the front part of the low body, and then releasing back down. Tops of the feet can rest onto your mat, onto the floor. And then we'll begin to bring that right hand towards the right shoulder, left hand towards the left shoulder, keeping the chin tucked. Yeah, head can be hovering here, or you can just rest the forehead onto the mat. And we will squeeze the elbows in towards the side body and then just hover the hands as you lift your gaze and then lower. We'll do that 2 more times. Squeeze the elbows in towards the rib cage, lift your gaze, hover the hands and lower. Finding your lift. And then lower here. This time we'll push ourselves up into Cobra and just adjusting through the pelvis, perhaps rolling the shoulders back and down along the spine. And then we'll take a bit of a twist. So I'm going to step forward with this left hand and then bring my right hand to my right hip and then take the gaze to the side towards the right, or maybe even beyond the right shoulder. For a round of breath here. And then sliding this right hand slightly forward, bringing the left hand towards the left hip, turning my gaze towards the left, or extending my gaze beyond the left shoulder. Feel free to readjust your hands. I have a few of my fingers hanging off the edges of the yoga mat, and I'm just continuing to roll my shoulders back and down, finding a lift that feels right in my body, pressing down through the tops of the feet. Connecting to breath here. And then bending through the elbows, coming on down. Again, folding through the forearms, softening through the forehead, finding a rest through the low body, maybe a shake out through the pelvis, right to left. And then walk the feet in if they have become far apart. Walk the feet in towards one another. And then from here, we'll tuck the chin, press the forehead down onto the mat, and bring the arms alongside the body. So my palms are down here, and we'll just begin to move a bit through locust pose. So finding a full lift with the low body and the upper body. And we can connect to the breath as we do so. So in the next inhale, lifting up head and neck, lifting up the arms, lifting up the feet, just finding this fullness of a breath in the body. And then as you exhale, we're lowering down, but we're hovering. And then we can inhale and lift up again. So feeling that pulling motion from the back of the heart space, and then lowering back down, hover. Do this one more time. Inhale, find your lift, extending out through the toes, and then hovering down. From here, the next time we lift, we'll reach the arms forward and see if we can touch the great toes together. So breath in, and then breath out as you release the arms alongside the body, still hovering with those hands and separating the toes. So just finding a little bit of motion here. Inhale, reaching arms forward, great toes touch. Exhale, releasing arms alongside the body with hands hovering and feet can separate. So just a few rounds here. And then we'll begin to rest by folding the forearms and bringing the forehead to meet the forearms. So shaking things out from side to side, bending through the knees, circling through the feet. Maybe kicking the feet forward and back, or shifting and swaying the feet from side to side. Our next transition will be moving into table pose, and we will have an opportunity to come back up into downward dog, and then we'll walk our way into a forward fold. So if you enjoyed using blocks for your practice within table pose and downward dog, perhaps finding a moment to reach for those props, having them within reach. Hands can come underneath the shoulders with bent knees, just pushing up through the upper part of the body, hinging back, maybe a child pose here. Just find a moment to listen to your body. Perhaps as you make any adjustments back into your table pose, you may want to enjoy a few rock backs or some hip circles, or even some cat and cow spinal extensions and flexions. So options to move in a way that feels right and feels good for you and your body. I'm going to reach for my blocks, find a moment to curl my toes under, cover the knees, finding that engagement through the low body, connecting toes to the mat, feeling into the strength of the back body. Breath is moving through, pushing up with those hips, finding a downward dog. Stepping things out. Widening through your stance. And then we'll begin to walk forward towards the hands. I'm flipping my blocks to the higher side. In this forward fold, my fingertips can brush the very tips of the blocks, and I can come up halfway and then fold again. Feel free to bend through the knees here, perhaps make connection belly to thighs. And then think about how you would like to unravel from this forward fold position. Maybe you bring your hands to your hips or slide your hands up your legs. Maybe you press your hands into your thighs and bend through the knees. Slowly push yourself up by imprinting those feet down into the mat. Move slowly. Take your time. Make any adjustments. And I'm going to move this blanket that I had for knee support out of the way. And then I'm also going to bring these weights that I was working with onto my chair. So I have a chair in my space. Chair and a wall is helpful for these next few movements. So from this standing position, we're going to press into the feet, roll the shoulders back, open up through the palms, and just rock a bit through the feet. Bending through the knees. Perhaps reaching the arms up overhead. And then releasing the arms down alongside the body. Next time we reach the arms up, you may want to come all the way up onto the tiptoes, lifting through the heels, and then lowering the arms down, lowering the heels down. Palms may connect with the arms reaching overhead. One more time here, hold on the lift, and then slowly lower the arms and lower the heels down. Once we make connection to the feet, I'm going to find my weights, bring the weights up towards the upper part of the chest. And then from here, I'm going to widen out my feet away from hip width. My toes are pointing out, and I'm going to begin to squat in this wide leg position. So rolling shoulders back, staying uplifted and lengthened through the spine, bending through both knees and dropping pelvis down towards the floor. So option 2, not have the weights and just focus on your wide leg squat. Option 2, add the weights, or perhaps this time add a heavier weight. So this is a great start, just moving in and out of your squat with extra weight. The next option would be to hold in your squat, keeping the pelvis tucked, the spine lengthened, and then we can begin to open up the arms in this W position and then bring the hands back towards heart center. So a few rounds here of squeezing shoulder blades together and then bringing the weights back. Option to stand up at any time. Option to hold with the weights out in that W shape for a round of breath. Bring the weights back to heart center. Stand up, toe heel the feet so they're closer together underneath the hips. And then from here, we will enjoy a balancing crane and balancing tree pose with or without the weights. So I will show with the weights. And you may just want to take a moment here. Having a chair in the space is very helpful. It helps with support, of course, if you don't have a wall, and then also a place for your weights to rest. So if you haven't stood on one leg in a while, just either lean into the wall, have it within reach, or have one hand on the chair. So my standing leg will be my left leg, and I'm going to unpeel the right heel away from the floor. Hands can be on the hips if you're not working with the weights, and we're going to bend the left knee slightly and then begin to lift up through this right knee and then lower. So bringing that big toe down towards the floor, finding that tapping. So this is option 1. Option 2 will be to hold on to your weights instead of bringing your hands onto the hips, coming up into your crane pose and then holding your crane pose, activating through the right toes. And then option 3 will bring the weights towards the shoulders and then push them up overhead. So you may choose to hold here in your weighted crane, connecting with your breath, focusing on something in your space that doesn't move, to bring in attention and concentration. You may bring the weights together overhead and begin to bend through the elbows. And then drop the weights behind the head and then push them back up. So accessing the backs of the arms here, a little tricep press. I'll just show a few repetitions here. And then feel free to Separate the weights, bring them down towards the heart space, lower that right leg down. And then from here, we're going to bring that right foot close to the left foot and then begin to hinge open this right hip and right knee. So moving right from crane pose into tree pose. Warming up through the hip and through the knee. When you're ready to hold on that opening, just make some connection with the right foot towards the left leg. The toes can be down, rooted into the floor, or you may slide that right foot up the left leg. So again, focus on something in your space that's not moving, a drishti point of concentration, and then see how you would like to grow your limbs with or without the weights. So nothing formal here, just showing some exploration, some movement that can be experienced as you notice sensation in your body and the state of your mind. Keeping the breath moving through. Bringing the weights back to the heart space. If you've had them extended out, draw that right knee back through center and then slide that right foot down if it isn't making connection to the floor. And then as you imprint that right foot down, we will shake out through the left leg. Maybe circle out through that left ankle. Feel free to take a break with the weights. Shake out through the hands as well. Circle out through the wrists. And our standing leg will now be our right leg. So again, adjust your space with your chair and your wall. But we will begin without the weights, unpeeling this left heel and then bringing this left knee up. So activating through the left foot and then bringing in this movement of tapping the big toe down towards the floor. Different ways to check in with your balance and also build your balance. And then option 2, hold in your crane pose with active left foot. You may choose to hold your weights here. Start with them towards the upper chest and then work your way maybe to shoulders, pressing them overhead, connecting with your breath here. The weights may meet together overhead, and then you could bend at the elbow for a few repetitions of tricep press on this side. The breath moving through. Slowly lower this left foot down, connecting with that big toe. And then slide the left foot closer to the right foot and begin this process of opening and closing left knee and left hip. So just noticing some similarities, perhaps some differences from side to side. Balance is quirky from right to left. So checking in with your body. When you're ready to hold on that external rotation, keeping that left knee out to the side, just notice if you want to keep the left toes down, pressing this left heel into the lower part of the right leg. Finding your steadiness here. Grow your tree, grow your limbs. Again, express and explore through weighted tree pose. Adding different layers of challenge. Building strength, building balance. And building connection within yourself. When you feel ready to release, hands will meet back towards the heart space. You can slowly slide this left foot down the right leg, make connection with the left toes, draw the left knee in, plant that left foot down. Feel free to release weights if you're working with them. Shake out through that right leg. Shake out through your wrists. I'm going to make some adjustments in my space here. I'm going to set the weights aside. And I'm setting up the chair. So I have the chair seat facing the long way of my yoga mat, and then have the at least 2 legs of the chair on the yoga mat so it doesn't slip around. But before we do that, we'll find a moment where we just connect to the center. And I find when we're working with one side of the body and then the other, some whole body movements can be very helpful for transitions. So just taking a moment for some whole body swinging. So arms can be alongside the body, and then we just sort of move with some momentum right to left. And as my arms go to one side, the opposite heel will unpeel from the floor. And you may want to have the arms swing further away from you, maybe get more of a bend into the knees. Just finding that whole body connection. And we can slow things down. And in your own way, we can find ourselves down onto the mat. So I'm going to sit in such a way where my feet will be facing the chair. I'm going to scooch myself a little closer to the chair and then lower myself down, spine to mat. So from here, we're going to lift up through one leg and place the heel down on the chair seat. And then same with the other side. So if you're still too far away from the chair, just scooch yourself closer. So we're going to transition into lifted bridge pose, but having the legs a little bit higher with the chair seat. So starting here with arms alongside the body, and then begin to bring movement through the pelvis. So just starting with some pelvic tilts. What I'm doing is pulling the low back away from the mat and then dropping the pelvis down towards the mat, ironing out that lumbar curve. So just a few rotations here. You may notice that the back of the head and the shoulders kind of slide with this movement happening. And then we will find ourselves in a position where the pelvis is pressing down towards the mat and that lumbar curve is ironed out. So that whole low back is pressing down into the mat. Palms are down, pressing alongside, and we're going to press into the heels and lift the pelvis up. So from here, we're going to just lift and lower the pelvis. So this is first option to try out and experience. Lifting and lowering the pelvis, using the strength of the legs to pull you up. Next option will be to add the arms. So as you lift the pelvis up, we can reach the arms up towards the ceiling. Reach the arms up overhead. And then perhaps lower the pelvis down as well as the arms. So your choice. We'll pause and rest for a moment, enjoying a round of breath. Inhale, followed by exhale. And then we'll try that same movement, but with a single leg option. So I'm pressing down into my right heel and I'm hovering my left foot. I'm now going to adjust my pelvis and then press into that right heel, lift up through the pelvis and then lower back down. I find this movement to be particularly challenging, so I'm going to have a goal of maybe 3 or 4. I think I'm on my last one here. Just lifting and then slowly lowering down. We'll switch out the legs, but have a moment of pause in between. So soften through the backs of the calves, enjoying a round of breath. And then we'll activate the left heel and then hover the right foot. And then from here, press into that left heel and lift the pelvis up and then lower. Just noticing how things sometimes feel different side to side. They may feel like you can get more repetitions in on one side than another, depending on how you feel in your body. This will be my last one. I'm going to hover at the top and then slowly lower down. Releasing that right leg down, releasing left leg down. Scoot yourself a little closer towards the chair so you can soften through the low legs. Just find a moment to open up through the palms, reconnect to your breath. From here, you may want to draw the knees in. You can just push your chair out if you have the space. Draw the knees in. Each hand may connect with the knee. Rock from side to side. Option to rotate through the toes, circling out in one direction and then the other. Coming back to the middle place, and then perhaps having the arms to the insides of the legs and then rotating the feet so they're facing the ceiling. So finding a moment in this lying stirrup pose. You may have connection with the hands on any part of the legs. Maybe it's just the knees, tops of the knees or the inner aspect of the knees. Maybe it's some part of the ankle. We can begin to rock like this, keeping those feet activated so the soles of the feet are facing the ceiling. You may even want to reach up with the first 2 fingers and grab hold of the big toe, pressing down through that lower bit of spine below the lumbar curve known as the sacrum. So pressing down through the whole pelvis. And then from here, you could rock a little bit from side to side. Finding release with one hand, release with the other, pointing and flexing the toes, maybe extending those legs up. We'll bend in through the knees and then feel free to rock yourself from side to side so you're all the way onto one side. I'm going to make a suggestion for our final rest pose to be one of support with perhaps a bolster or a block underneath the spine. So I'll show those options. If you have 2 blocks, these are cork blocks, so they're a little bit uncomfortable underneath the spine. If you have a foam block, it might be better, but you could lay the 2 blocks down and then you could lay your spine down onto the blocks. It requires a little bit of adjustment. The goal of having the top block would be for the head support, and then you want to scoot yourself a little bit so the corners of the block are between your shoulder blades. So it requires a little bit of adjustment here, and you want your shoulder blades or your scapula to sort of drape off the corners of the block. So the bulk of the block will be on the mid part of the spine above the lumbar curve. So this would be one option, and we could extend the legs. We could have active toes or soft toes, whatever feels comfortable for you. So from this position, this is one of them. The other option, which I'm going to choose, is the one of most softness, which is the bolster. And we're going to bring in some rest and some relaxation, as seen by Lily. She knows how to do it. Take all my lessons from her. So having a bolster, you could even stack this bolster up with blanket, could fold a blanket again and have more height, and then line yourself up. And then allow the spine to be supported by the softer bolster, draping the arms out to the side. I'm going to extend my legs, but there's so many different options for what you could do with your legs. You could bring the soles of your feet together and allow the hips and knees to extend outward. You could have blocks underneath the knees as well. You could have a block underneath each thigh for some lift there. But the idea for this pose would be a supported fish pose. So we get a back bend, an opening through the heart space in the shoulders, a lengthening through the spine, so the breath can be free to move in and out of the body. So let's find a few moments together here to end our practice in rest, with open hearts and easeful breaths. Sink down into the props that you've chosen or into the floor. Just feel into that grounded steadiness beneath you. So as I mentioned at the beginning of class, this is the season of spring where I live, and there's so much beauty, color that's popping up from the earth. And spring is the beginning. Begins all the seasonal cycles again. And I can't help but think about how nature is so reflective of the seasons that we have within our own bodies and the rhythms that we can connect to in our own bodies. Our circadian rhythms of sleep, our sleep-wake cycles, the rhythm to our eating, the rhythm to our breath, and of course, the rhythm of our hearts. So feel free to end here with some connection, maybe one hand to your body, in a way to receive that ease and softening and completion to your practice. So we'll end here in rest pose with the hopes that you have more time to devote to this. Even just 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes or more can have a significant effect on the rest of your day.